my thesis is working on wellbeing, an exploration of factors that support teacher wellbeing and the potential role for educational psychologists. So the context, it's widely acknowledged that teaching is a quite challenging profession, and teachers are experiencing high levels of work-related stress, and as a consequence of this increased stress, having difficulties with their mental health and well-being. Researchers have illustrated that 58% of teachers have been diagnosed with depression and 51% have been diagnosed with anxiety, and these are higher than nationally reported statistics for any other profession. And despite this, over 60% of teachers wouldn't seek support within their schools because they fear that they'd be judged negatively because of this. So obviously, poor teacher wellbeing has an impact upon teachers themselves, but research has also illustrated that it has wider implications, so it can impact pupil academic outcomes, pupil wellbeing, obviously collegiate relationships with other teachers and school staff, and it's having a big impact on the recruitment and retention of teachers as well. But despite this, it's only within the last few years that teacher mental health and wellbeing has actually received some attention from the UK government. So at the minute, there's a Ofsted teacher wellbeing survey, and there's been the expert advisory group on teacher wellbeing as well. And in terms of the literature, teacher wellbeing is quite an under-researched area within the UK. The majority has taken more of a problem-focused approach, emphasising all the factors that compromise teacher wellbeing, but research investigating the factors that support teacher wellbeing and the ways in which it can be improved is quite sparse. And also there's been a limited number of studies that have explored the role of the EP in supporting the wellbeing of teachers. So it's either been conducted internationally or has focused on evaluating one role or the implementation of one intervention. So my research questions: what do teachers understand by the term teacher wellbeing? To what extent do they feel that their wellbeing is valued both by individual teachers and by schools as a whole? And then the main research questions were: what factors support teacher wellbeing and what ways can teacher wellbeing be improved? And then, do teachers and educational psychologists believe that they have a role in supporting teacher wellbeing? And if so, what is their actual or perceived role? So my methodology, I used a mixed methods design. I used the text is zoomed to the side, but I used online questionnaires and semi-structured interviews. So it was conducted in 2 phases. So in phase 1, an online questionnaire was sent to mainstream teachers and another questionnaire was sent to educational psychologists. 69 teachers in total participated in the online questionnaire and 19 educational psychologists participated. And in the online questionnaire, they got the option to volunteer to participate in a semi-structured interview. And off that, I got 4 mainstream teachers volunteered and 4 educational psychologists. And in terms of data analysis, the majority of my data was qualitative, so it was analysed using thematic analysis, but there were some closed questions on the online questionnaire, so this data was analysed using descriptive statistics. So moving on to my findings. So in terms of the definition of wellbeing, teachers recognise that it's quite a broad term which is difficult to define, and the definitions provided did differ across the participants, but there were common themes, so in the diagram. And the biggest themes that they identified was wellbeing is a sense of balance between kind of work and home life. It's a combination of both mental and physical health, and the wellbeing is a presence of positive emotions and an absence of negative ones. And when considering whether teacher wellbeing is valued, there was a consensus that teachers do value their own wellbeing, but it seems to be more theoretical. So the behaviour of teachers was regularly inconsistent with this belief, so they always put their job and pupils before themselves. So whilst they did value their own well-being, they don't really do much about it. And when considering whether teacher well-being was valued by their school, their opinions were more divergent, so it depended largely on the context, so the senior leadership team and the school ethos as well. And then the factors that support teacher well-being, teachers identified quite a lot of factors, and whilst the thematic analysis was inductive, I organised the themes according to Bromford-Brenner's bioecological theory, and yeah, they're presented in the diagram. So the teachers felt that your ability to maintain your own well-being varies greatly between individuals due to a vast number of personal factors. So these included kind of your individual characteristics, such as resilience, positivity, optimism, your soft skills. So they said organisation and time management were key in maintaining your well-being. Your willingness to seek support, the experience you have as a teacher. So in this study, they felt that having more teaching experience was actually beneficial, and obviously your personal circumstances and the job role and associated responsibilities. And even though it's quite difficult for schools and EPs to affect the factors at the personal level, particularly your job role and your experience, it's important to be mindful of these factors and kind of provide support maybe for people with less experience or in a more difficult role or with difficult personal circumstances. So it's just kind of reflecting on these. And so at the microsystemic level, both teachers and EPs acknowledge that well-being is context dependent. So it's unsurprising that the majority of the factors were identified at the microsystemic level. And one of the biggest things was obviously the school leadership team. They said that it needed to be supportive and approachable. They spoke a lot about the expectations in terms of workload and work-life balance and not having enough time to do their jobs. And pupils were spoken about as well, in terms of the behaviour and the increasing number of pupils with SEND within mainstream schools at the minute, and teachers wanted more support with managing pupil behaviour and obviously meeting the needs of pupils with special needs. And then teachers at the meso system level, teachers stress the importance of having kind of a strong support network both inside and outside of school. So they identified two primary sources of support. So colleagues were viewed as emotional support but also practical support as well in terms of planning together and generating different ideas. And obviously friends and family were viewed as important in terms of maintaining work-life balance and giving you a sense of identity outside of being a teacher. And then obviously at the other levels, they identified a number of key factors outside of the school environment. So parents were seen as a big one in terms of maintaining relationships with parents, access to external professional support, and a lot of the factors at these levels were spoken about negatively rather than positively, but they did suggest a few ways that this could be improved. And the EP role, so EPs believed they had a role in supporting teacher wellbeing, but teacher views were kind of more divergent. So they had an unfamiliarity with the EP role in terms of the wider support. So they viewed our role in terms of assessing and identifying individual children's needs rather than supporting staff. It was recognised by all that the lack of EP capacity at the minute could be a current and future barrier to providing support. And also they said that pupils are obviously prioritised within school and in terms of EP support as well. And the EP role was divided into two distinct categories. So they said indirect support, so raising awareness of the importance of teacher wellbeing, supporting teachers to support their students, and crisis or critical incident support. And then direct support as well, so providing either individual or group supervision, training, offering individual support and interventions for people with poor wellbeing, and the provision of strategies to help teachers to maintain their wellbeing. But one of the key things was, irrespective of the adopted approach, they said the support offered must be service-wide, because at the minute it seemed like the support offered was dependent on the individual school and the individual EP that's offering it as well. So they wanted a bit more consistency across that. And then, yeah, the implications for school, just reflecting on the supportive factors and addressing these where possible. And there were some of the ideas. Implications for EPs, so raising the profile of teacher wellbeing, being mindful of teacher wellbeing in our day-to-day practice, and reflecting on the direct and indirect support outlined, and providing a range of it, especially within the current context with COVID. Yeah, that's it.